February 22nd, 2026. Sometime before dawn. A gated compound inside the Tapalpa Country Club, roughly 90 kilometers south of Guadalajara. Mexican special forces breached the perimeter. Helicopter rotors beat the air overhead. Somewhere above them, invisible, a U.S. Predator drone watches everything. Inside the compound is the most wanted man in the Western Hemisphere, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho. He is the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, the most powerful drug trafficking organization the world has ever seen. The Drug Enforcement Administration has a $10 million bounty on his head. He controls an empire that stretches across more than 40 countries, generates somewhere between $20 billion and $50 billion in assets, and employs an estimated 15,000 to 20,000 people. He has been running all of it from hiding, sick, on dialysis. His kidney function is below 15% of normal. When the gunfire starts, he runs into the woods with roughly 10 bodyguards, but he does not get far. He is hit with thoracic wounds, abdominal wounds, and wounds to his lower extremities. They airlift him toward Mexico City. He dies en route, approximately 10:30 in the morning. 8 cartel operatives are dead, including him. 2 are detained. Rocket launchers, armored vehicles, and heavy weaponry were seized. Within hours, 252 roadblocks go up across more than 20 Mexican states. 25 National Guard members are killed in Jalisco alone. Guadalajara goes under code red lockdown. More than 70 attacks hit banks, convenience stores, and government buildings in Guanajuato. Airlines cancel flights into Puerto Vallarta, where smoke rises over the beachfront. But here's the thing. The war that matters isn't on the highways. It's inside the cartel itself, because by the time they killed El Mencho, his family was already gone. His son is serving life plus 30 years at ADX Florence, the federal supermax. His daughter was arrested, convicted, released, and then vanished. His wife was freed from prison just 4 days before his death. His brother-in-law, the man who laundered billions, was extradited to the United States and is reportedly talking to the feds. And the one person left standing is his stepson, a man born in Santa Ana, California, who now supposedly runs a $20 to $50 billion criminal empire with a $5 million American bounty on his head. El Mencho was born Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes on July 17, 1966, in the Tierra Caliente region of Michoacán, one of the most violent and drug-saturated areas in Mexico. As a teenager in the 1980s, he crossed illegally into California. He was convicted of heroin trafficking conspiracy in the early 1990s, served roughly 3 years in a Texas federal prison, and was deported. Back in Mexico, he briefly worked as a police officer in Jalisco. Then he went back to what he knew. But the move that changed everything wasn't a crime. It was a marriage. He married Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, and in doing so, he married into one of the most powerful narco dynasties in Western Mexico. The Gonzalez Valencia clan, known as Los Queens, had 16 or more siblings, many of them deep in the drug trade. Through Rosalinda, El Mencho gained the lineage he lacked, the connections, the capital, the credibility. See Chapter G. Enter G was born from the collapse of the Milenio Cartel, a Sinaloa-affiliated organization run by the Valencia family in Jalisco and Michoacán. When Milenio leader Oscar Orlando Nava Valencia was arrested in October 2009, his brother Juan Carlos followed in May 2010, and then Sinaloa cartel capo Ignacio Nacho Coronel was killed by the Mexican military in July 2010. 3 blows in 9 months. The power vacuum split everything open. El Mencho's faction, initially calling themselves Los Mata Zetas, the Zeta Killers, launched a propaganda campaign portraying themselves as protectors of the people. They won the resulting war against the rival La Resistencia faction. By 2011, CJNG was consolidated under El Mencho's control. The May 1st, 2015 shoot-down of a helicopter was the moment the world learned what CJNG had become. During an operation to capture El Mencho near Villa Purificación, cartel gunmen, armed with RPG-7 and RPG-27 rocket launchers, a Browning M2 heavy machine gun, and a Barrett M82 anti-materiel rifle, fired 6 rockets at a Mexican Air Force helicopter. 1 struck the tail rotor. 9 military and police personnel were killed. It was the first time in the entire Mexican drug war that organized crime shot down an aircraft. CJNG then launched coordinated roadblocks across Jalisco and 4 neighboring states. The same playbook they'd use 11 years later, the day El Mencho died. At its peak, CJNG maintained a presence in 28 to 32 of Mexico's states. It controlled Mexico's Pacific ports, Manzanillo in Colima and Lázaro Cárdenas in Michoacán, the primary gateways for Colombian cocaine and Asian precursor chemicals. In 2024 alone, 88 tons of fentanyl precursor chemicals were seized at Manzanillo. The cartel operated in more than 40 countries and maintained associates in nearly all 50 U.S. states. In Europe, it trafficked cocaine and methamphetamine through the Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, Spain, Germany, and the UK. In India, authorities busted a CJNG-linked meth lab in Greater Noida in October 2024, the first known CJNG drug production on Indian soil. The empire ran on a dual structure. El Mencho commanded military and territorial operations. Los Quines, led by his brother-in-law Abigail Gonzalez Valencia, managed the finances. Annual cocaine revenue alone was estimated at $8 billion. Crystal methamphetamine added another $4.6 billion. And then there were the non-drug operations, fuel theft generating hundreds of millions, avocado and lime extortion in Michoacán, timeshare fraud targeting American tourists, illegal mining, and human smuggling. All of it flowed through a network of shell companies, front businesses, and real estate holdings that Rosalinda helped manage. El Mencho raised his children inside this machine. His son, Ruben, his daughter, Jessica, his stepson, Juan Carlos. They grew up between the wealth and the secrecy, between the mansions and the violence that paid for them, and one by one, the system he built consumed them all. But by 2014, law enforcement was not just coming for the cartel, they were coming for the family. The timeline tells the story. El Menchito was first arrested in January 2014, released and recaptured in June 2015. El Quini was captured in February 2015. Rosalinda was arrested in May 2018 and rearrested in November 2021. Jessica was arrested in February 2020. The U.S. strategy was clear: to decapitate the financial network and the bloodline simultaneously. The Office of Foreign Assets Control imposed sanctions. Kingpin Act designations followed. And in February 2025, the Trump administration designated CJNG as a foreign terrorist organization, unlocking material support prosecutions that can carry potential life sentences. Meanwhile, El Mencho was dying. His kidney function had dropped below 15%. He needed daily dialysis. His operational control was delegated to a council of commanders managing 4 territorial regions. The man who had held CJNG together through fear could barely hold himself together. Then came Tapalpa. On February 20th, 2026, there was a surveillance breakthrough. A trusted man of one of El Mencho's romantic partners was tracked to the Tapalpa Country Club. The woman left on February 21st. El Mencho stayed with roughly 10 bodyguards. Mexican Special Forces, including the Air Force and the National Guard Special Immediate Reaction Force, planned and launched the pre-dawn raid within 24 hours. A U.S. Predator drone provided overhead surveillance. It was part of the Joint Interagency Task Force counter-cartel established by the Pentagon roughly a month earlier. The firefight was brief. 8 CJNG operatives were killed. El Mencho was wounded while fleeing through the woods and then airlifted. He was pronounced dead by 10:30 a.m. He suffered thoracic, abdominal, and lower extremity gunshot wounds. The retaliation was immediate. Hugo Cesar Macias Urena, known as El Tuli, El Mencho's right-hand man, organized the response. He offered 20,000 pesos for every soldier killed. There were 252 roadblocks. 25 National Guard were killed in Jalisco. There were more than 70 attacks in Guanajuato. Guadalajara was placed under code red. Puerto Vallarta flights were canceled. The U.S. Embassy issued shelter-in-place orders across 9 states. Security forces tracked El Tuli and killed him that same day. On March 3rd, 2026, they buried El Mencho in Zapopan in a golden casket. If your father built a criminal empire worth tens of billions of dollars and your brother was facing life in a federal supermax, would you fly into Washington, D.C. to sit in his courtroom? Jessica Johanna Oseguera Gonzalez did. Let me know what you would have done in the comments. But El Menchito was not the only one the system took. Every person who carried El Mencho's name or his blood paid a price. El Menchito Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez was El Mencho's natural heir. Born in San Francisco in 1990, he was a dual United States and Mexican citizen who co-led CJNG alongside his father. Designated 02 within the organization, he supervised the production of more than 1,000 metric tons of methamphetamine and ordered the murders of over 100 people. He directed logistics, enforcement, distribution. He was the future. His first arrest came in January 2014. He was released, lack of evidence, according to a Mexican judge. He was recaptured in June 2015 in Zapopan. This time, they found customized AR-15 rifles engraved with CJNG 02 Jr. What followed was a prolonged extradition battle through Mexican courts that lasted years. He finally arrived in Washington, D.C. in February 2020. The federal trial laid out the full scope of what El Menchito had done: drug trafficking, conspiracy, and firearms charges. His role in the 2015 helicopter shoot-down that killed 9 soldiers was central to the prosecution. On September 24, 2024, a federal jury convicted him. And on March 7, 2025, Judge Beryl Howell sentenced him to life imprisonment plus 30 years and ordered the forfeiture of more than $6 billion in drug proceeds. The largest forfeiture in CJNG prosecution history. He is now held at ADX Florence, the same facility housing El Chapo. No possibility of parole. The son who was supposed to inherit the empire will die in the most secure prison on earth. And with that conviction, the bloodline succession ended. Jessica Johanna Oseguera Gonzalez La Negra was also born in the United States. A dual citizen, She lived between Mexico and America and held a financial role within the CJNG network, conducting transactions with sanctioned businesses tied to the cartel, sushi restaurants, an advertising firm, and a tequila agency in Guadalajara. In February 2020, she traveled from Mexico to Washington, D.C. for one reason: to attend her brother El Menchito's court hearing. She was arrested upon arrival on 5 counts of violating the Kingpin Act. The irony was almost too clean. She walked into the one jurisdiction on earth that could convict her. She pleaded guilty in March 2021 and was sentenced to 30 months. She was released in March 2022 under the First Step Act. Since then, she has maintained a low profile. Her location and activities are largely unknown. Her father's death leaves her in a position no one would want. Visible enough to be targeted, powerless enough to be discarded. Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, La Jefa, was the financial backbone of the empire. She ran dozens of front businesses, shell companies, and property holdings. She managed the money laundering network that enabled billions in cartel revenue to move through the legitimate economy. Her marriage to El Mencho was not just personal, it was strategic. It united 2 criminal dynasties into one machine. She was first arrested in May 2018 in Zapopan. She paid bail. She walked. She was rearrested in November 2021. Reports indicated that she and El Mencho had been separated since her first arrest in 2018, but they remained legally married. In December 2023, she was convicted and sentenced to 5 years for concealing financial transactions related to a car wash in Puerto Vallarta. Remarkably, the judge did not connect her conviction to organized crime. On February 27, 2025, she was granted early release for good conduct. She walked out of prison. Her husband was killed less than a year later, 4 days shy of the anniversary of her release. Her son sits at ADX Florence. Her daughter has vanished from public life, and her brother may be the most dangerous piece of all. Abigail Gonzalez Valencia, El Queenie, was the architect. While El Mencho handled the guns and the territory, El Queenie built the financial infrastructure that made CJNG a global enterprise. He co-founded Los Queenies, which managed billions in cartel proceeds. Forbes once estimated his wealth among the top narco fortunes in the world. He was captured in Puerto Vallarta in February 2015, and then he fought. For more than a decade, he battled extradition through the Mexican courts. His case was complicated by connections to the Ayotzinapa investigation, the disappearance of 43 students in 2014 that remains one of Mexico's most painful open wounds. Mexican prosecutors did not want to lose access to a potential witness. He was finally extradited to the United States on August 12, 2025, as part of a batch of 26 cartel figures sent to America. He was charged in the District of Columbia with methamphetamine trafficking, cocaine distribution, and firearms offenses. He initially pleaded not guilty. United States prosecutors presented more than 76,000 documents at his first hearing, and then, by October 2025, reports surfaced that he had begun cooperating with United States authorities. If those reports are accurate, El Queenie is the single most dangerous informant in CJNG's history. He knows every financial channel, every bribed official, every hidden asset, every account. His testimony could unravel what is left of the empire from the inside, and that leaves one final question. If the son is in Supermax, the daughter has vanished, the wife is free but powerless, and the brother-in-law is talking to the feds. Who actually runs CJNG now? The answer, reportedly, is a man named Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, L03. El Pelon. El Mencho's stepson, Rosalinda's son from a prior relationship, raised as El Mencho's own. He was born in Santa Ana, California. He is approximately 41 years old. He co-founded and commands Grupo Elite, CJNG's paramilitary wing, the armed enforcement branch that operates across Michoacan, Zacatecas, and Guanajuato. The United States National Counterterrorism Center designated him the de facto second in command of CJNG. After El Mencho's death, anonymous cartel sources reported that he had been named the new leader. The United States has placed a $5 million bounty on him. But here is the problem. Security analyst David Saucedo assessed L03 as too young, lacking the knowledge, the experience, and critically, the influence among other cartel commanders needed to hold CJNG together. And in a franchise-based organization where regional bosses control their own plazas, manage their own finances, and conduct their own operations, influence is everything. His chief subordinate, Ricardo Ruiz Velasco, LRR, is a CJNG co-founder who commands his own territorial power base across 4 states. He is the primary generator of violence in Jalisco, Guanajuato, Michoacan, and Zacatecas. He developed the cartel's explosive drone warfare program. He was sanctioned by OFAC in June 2025. Formally, he answers to L03. In practice, he is a power center in his own right. Then there is Carlos Andres Rivera Varela La Firma, a Colombian national who rose through CJNG to become plaza boss of Puerto Vallarta. He is wanted by the FBI for money laundering and material support for terrorism. Between 2020 and 2022, he conducted an internal purge, eliminating old guard CJNG members with El Mencho's tacit approval. That power consolidation positioned him as a major force within the organization. Mexico's Security Secretary Omar Garcia Harfuch, who himself survived a CJNG assassination attempt in Mexico City in 2020, stated publicly that of 4 regional leaders, 2 are most likely to succeed. He did not name them. L03 represents the last card in the family's hand. If he holds the organization together, the Oseguera Gonzalez Valencia dynasty survives in some form. If he fails, CJNG fragments, and the succession war becomes an actual war. The devastation does not stop with El Mencho's immediate family. The broader Gonzalez Valencia clan has been gutted. Jose Gonzalez Valencia El Chepa was captured in Brazil in December 2017 and sentenced to 30 years in June 2025. Gerardo Gonzalez Valencia El Lalo was arrested in Uruguay in April 2016 and linked to the Panama Papers. He was sentenced to life. El Mencho's brother, Abraham Don Rodo, was briefly arrested and released in April 2024 and recaptured on February 28, 2025. Even El Mencho's son-in-law, Christian Gutierrez Ochoa, El Gaucho, who faked his own death and assumed a false identity in Southern California, was tracked down in Riverside in November 2024 and sentenced to 11 years for money laundering. On March 3, 2026 in Zapopan, they buried Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes in a golden casket. The man who built a cartel that operated in more than 40 countries, that generated tens of billions of dollars, that employed an army of 20,000. But he could not protect a single member of his own family. The empire outlives him, for now. But the family that built it is scattered across supermax cells, federal courtrooms, and unmarked lives. And somewhere, El Queenie may be sitting in a room with American prosecutors, telling them everything, every name, every account, every payment, every secret the family ever held. Somewhere else, ELZO3 is making decisions that will determine whether CJNG survives as a unified force or splinters into a dozen warring factions. He is a California-born stepson with a $5 million bounty on his head, trying to hold together an organization built on one man's authority, an authority that died on a helicopter somewhere between Jalisco and Mexico City. The succession war no one sees yet may already be over before anyone fires a shot. The most dangerous weapon aimed at CJNG right now is not a predator drone or a special forces unit. It is a family member in a federal courtroom who finally decided to talk.